Hi guys, this is Ms. Howington here at Research Triangle High School. Today we are going to talk about energy in ecosystems. So some of this might be a little bit of a review from biology, so hopefully it'll be pretty quick. So if you guys will remember, all of our energy that's coming into terrestrial ecosystems is coming from the sun, and even in a lot of aquatic ecosystems. There are some ecosystems that are getting their energy from other sources, like some other chemicals, but we're not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about ecosystems that all the energy is coming from the sun. So one of the most important organisms in these ecosystems are our producers, or our autotrophs. These are organisms that are taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere or from the water, and in the presence of sunlight, with that energy from sunlight, they are converting those into glucose, which all organisms need to then create energy for themselves, and oxygen, which we also need to create energy for ourselves. So then these producers are creating some glucose, they're using some themselves to create energy for their body processes to grow and to carry out more photosynthesis. But then there's extra left over, and that can be used by consumers. We also sometimes call consumers heterotrophs. These are organisms that do not make their own energy. They're taking that glucose from the producers and that oxygen from the producers, and they are in their cells combining them to create energy, first and foremost in the form of ATP, and then carbon dioxide and some water vapor as well. So there are lots of different kinds of consumers. So the different levels that we go through when organisms are eating one another, we call them trophic levels. So again, we start out with producers. They're super important because they take that sunlight energy and then they convert it and they make it into glucose and oxygen, which all these other consumers need to create energy for themselves. And then primary consumers eat producers, secondary consumers eat primary consumers, tertiary consumers eat secondary consumers, and you can keep going like that, and you can get quaternary consumers or quintenary consumers, and you can keep going. And then we also have another trophic level that's not shown here on this slide. We have detritivores, or decomposers. So these are organisms that are taking dead organisms and they are using that as their food source. So like, think about like fungi and bacteria and worms that are in the soil and decomposing those dead organisms. All right, when we want to show all of the connections, all of the energy transfers that are happening in an ecosystem, a lot of times we do that with a food web. So this is a little bit more complex than just looking at trophic levels, and you can see here that organisms can fit more than one trophic level. It just depends on what they happen to have eaten for lunch that day. So in this case, we have like our grasses are our producers, and then that energy is being transferred to the wildebeest or the hyena or the zebra or the gazelle. And then, and so those arrows in that food web are pointing in the direction that that energy is being transferred. So in this situation, like the lion is eating the giraffe, so the energy from the giraffe is going to the lion. So our arrow points to the lion. Think about it as whatever the food is going into the mouth of. That's where the arrow points. And a lot of times in ecosystems, each organism eats another, there is energy that is lost. So the grasses have to use some energy to grow and to carry out their life processes. The zebra has to use some of the energy that it gets from the grasses to move around and to carry out its processes. So 90% of the energy in an organism, as it goes from one trophic level up to the next, is lost to the atmosphere as heat. So only about 10% of the energy is transferred from one trophic level to another. And so that kind of necessitates, as the higher you go up the trophic level, the more land that's needed to produce all the food that you need. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in class. And just a quick thank you to all of our resources that were used in helping to make this slide. So I'll see you guys all in class. Bye.